Hello and welcome to another video. This is Adrian, and today I am making another birthday card using components of the April 2018 Hero Art set. Now today, that is the February 2018 Hero Art set there, but I ended up not using it, so don't worry about it. I thought I was going to use the music notes and I didn't. Today I'm playing around with the inks that came with the April set. There's a Fiesta Yellow, a Fiesta Teal, and a Fiesta Red. That might be Fiesta Blue. Anyway, they are water reactive inks, so I do not have any distressed inks, but it sounds like they are similar to that. So I decided I wanted to try blending them. Now, it is a brand new blending foam that I am using, and I am using a 110-pound weight cardstock. I don't remember the name of it. I know it's not Nina or anything like that, but it is 110 pounds. So I had a little bit of trouble getting the colors to blend. It took me a very long time to do it, and I can only imagine it's a combination of new blending pads that just don't have ink on them yet, and operator error is always a possibility, and then possibly the cardstock. This is the card. This is not what I use for a card base, which this is an interesting thing about paper. You hear so many times on these videos that they use 110-pound cardstock or 110-pound paper. Well, this is 110 pound, and I used it for, I don't know, close to a year as my card base paper. It is thicker than the 80 pounds or the 60 pounds for sure, but it still just kind of had a very loose, flimsy, not flimsy, but just not quite as sturdy of a feel. Then I discovered there's something called a 110-pound cover, ultra heavyweight cardstock. And I bought that. Now that stuff is beautifully thick, and that is what I use now as my card bases. So although this is 110 pounds and my cover cardstock is 110 pounds, there is a huge difference in the weight of these 110-pound papers. So I think that possibly, even though this is a good quality paper, it just might not be the right kind of paper for blending. But as you can see, the more and more I worked with it, it was coming together. I've sped this up, and it was coming together, and it was a good time to just breathe and relax and just play around, because I don't do a lot of blending because I struggle with it. So this was a wonderful opportunity to just practice with it. So at this point I decided I think that's about the best that I'm going to get it. So I am going to heat set it, and then I pulled out my Stampin' Up! Misting pen and spritzer, and this is the one that I have Perfect Pearls mixed in. Now the Perfect Pearls will settle to the bottom every time, and you have to shake, 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 and then shake some more. Oh, did you catch the Grace? She gave you the peace sign again. There it is, another one. Yeah, here, shake it if you need to do something. You have to shake it up a lot, but once you do, it is this beautiful pearlescent water that really added something. And so I sprayed it on there and let it sit for just a little bit, and then mopped it up, and as you can see, it did react with the ink. And between that reaction and the stamping I'm going to do on top of it, I think that the blending really did work out okay. In the end, I was very pleased with it. So here I am heat setting it. Now this card warped. Let me tell you, it seriously warped, but it was still workable, just a little bit cantankerous. But I was heat setting it because what I'm going to do is, there is a Maraca, I think that's how you say it, stamp on this in this kit, and I wanted to stamp it in the Hero Arts Unicorn White, and then I'm also going to heat emboss over it with Recollection Snow White embossing powder. Now, as you can see, some of the embossing powder was still sticky, and that was after I heat set it the first time. So I actually kind of broke away from the camera for a little bit and heat set it, tested it again. It was still heat set it, tested it again. It took like 2 tries of heat setting it before I got to where the embossing powder was not sticking to it. So now I have been very generous with my embossing buddy, and I put a little tape runner on the table hoping it would help keep it there, but no, it didn't do anything. But it still worked out in the end. And now I am just stamping the little maracas, and believe it or not, I had shake, shake, shake going through my head the whole time I was doing this. I had a lot of fun. You would be amazed how many songs can run through your head that have the word shake in it. So, not to bore you with watching me stamp it over and over again, as you can see, I just covered the whole front of the card face with the unicorn white, and then I added the Recollection Snow embossing powder, and just made sure I had it everywhere I wanted it to be. And then I go in with the paintbrush, a dry paintbrush, and just get off any stray specks that I see. And once I'm very happy with it, I put the powders and everything away, and I will go into heat setting it. Now, you do kind of want to, put things away and wipe down your tabletop just a scotch, because I have heat set. My tabletop's been embossed, so it always adds to the fun of crafting. So just a really quick wipe down, and then we're going to heat emboss it. Now, I took a few seconds, about 10 seconds, to preheat my guns to get it good and hot, because I already had a warping issue. And then you don't see me doing a whole bunch of like whirly-burling around. It looks like it because I have a pretty fast speeds, but I'm just kind of staying close to each item and just letting it melt. When I see that it's completely shiny, I know that it has melted, and it does not take long at all. And I'm using my reverse tweezers to kind of hold the paper still and protect my fingers. And then again, I tried to just, iron it out from the back side, so to speak. But as you can see, it's still warped, but it is not going to be a problem in the end. It's going to go on foam tape, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So now I am pulling out my stamps. I decided that I wanted to use the birthday cake, and then I'm going to use the happy birthday, but I wasn't sure how I was going to orient the card. So I'm still kind of thinking about that, and I figured I'd just go ahead and get my stamps on the block and start stamping. Now, I am going to color this cake with alcohol markers for no other reason than because I can. I haven't had a lot of time to play with them. I'm looking to make sure that I do have the cake die, and I do. So I have set my plan. I'm going to stamp the cake in momentum so that I can use the alcohol markers and play around with them a little bit more. But and I'm going to do the word happy birthday though in the I do it in the momentum too. I thought that I had done it in Versa Fine, but no, I did it in the momentum, and I pulled out my alcohol markers. Now, the happy in this sentiment is hollowed out, so you can color it to match anything you want it to. And I was kind of enjoying the festive bright colors of this ink palette that we had come to, so I chose the yellow to color in the happy. And as you can see, straightforward coloring. I'm not doing any shading, nothing special. So you could do this with regular markers. You could do this with coloring pencils, crayons, paint, whatever. It doesn't have to be an alcohol marker. I just chose to do that, and I just kind of brushed it off to the side to make sure that I didn't have any ink transfer, which I didn't. Now, originally I was just coloring in the candles with the yellow, and then I decided that I was going to do a teal blue for the icing, and I really like the way that turned out. I kind of played around with the idea of coloring the cake itself a nice festive red to match the front of the card, but then I decided that's just a little bit too much. So you'll see that in the end I just stick with this blue teal for the icing and the yellow for the candles and the icing. And you'll see that there's like some donkey pinata cake decorations and the plate. I went ahead and did those in the yellow with the candles, and it just kind of ties everything together and gives it a very clean, finished look. And I was very happy with that. So then it was time to search out the die. So I released the cake die, and then I pulled out my stitch rectangle dies. Now the stitch rectangle dies I got from Wish. It is a no brand out of China. It was $1 for like 8 dies, $2 shipping. I figured for $3 I was trying them, and I have been happy with them. So they're not the most sturdy thing, but they work fine. So I know you can sometimes save $1 and do well. So you'll see that I'm going to just go ahead and get the sandwich made up, and then I'll run it through the die cutting machine off camera because it is all on my table and it would just shake. As a matter of fact, I think the camera did actually wobble and fall and everything else. So I've gotten it die cut and just going to poke out those pieces, and I am pleased with it. I didn't quite have the cake centered as well as I would have liked, but it is centered well enough. And then I went in with the ink that was left on the blue sponge. I didn't add any ink to it, and just kind of brushed the sides. It helps to give it a more finished look, and I brushed over the white. The white just seems so stark, and although you can't really see that there's any blue on it, it does just kind of tone down the white, even though it still looks white. But I was pleased. So now comes the figuring out of how do I want to do it. I was thinking maybe a top fold landscape card, and then I thought, let's try a portrait with it off to the side. And I was sitting there going, I like that better, but we'll see where that goes. So now, as I've said in the past, I always have my paper. I have a whole stack of papers that are cut to 5.5 by 4.25, and those are my face papers, the front panel papers that I do my stamping and inking and everything on, so that I don't waste the really heavy duty cardstock that I have. I can always just glue it. And I'm just taking about 1/8 of an inch off of all 4 sides. It kind of cleans up some of the sponging ink to the sides, and it just gives it a finished look. And then you have that nice little border. I like that little white border around the cards. It just adds a layer. But in this case, I was thinking, I don't want the white, so I just went ahead and sponged a little bit of the blue on, because I know that this card is going to a male. And even though the red is a Fiesta red, it had a little bit of a hot pink look to me, although I have no problem with men in hot pink. My husband loves hot pink, and I think that it's cool. But I do like the rustic look of just sponging around the edge, and it kind of gives that look like a layering effect, like you've done layering to the card without much work at all. And it adds just a beautiful finished look. And I like it. It's rustic and edgy, which is me to some extent. So now I'm off camera, and I apologize. I am mounting the mouse that's playing I don't know if he's playing the trumpet. That's what I'm going to call it for right now. On the inside of the card. And I'm doing that with Memento Tuxedo Black, because I'm going to color him in with the alcohol markers. And then I have another sentiment that says "Let's Party," and I'm going to do that in the Versa Fine Black Onyx ink, because I want it to be a very bright and crisp, bold black. And you'll be able to see the difference when I get that on. That it's just got a finished look. It's got a bold look. But that is not a good ink for coloring with alcohol markers. So you have to use the Memento for the alcohol markers. So then I cleaned off my stamps, because the last thing you want to do is just let the stamps go, and I start coloring the mouse. Now, I am not going to show you the whole process of me coloring him because I didn't do anything special. I just did very basic single color coloring of this mouse. And I did it with the colors that were complementary to the front panel. So, there you go. Voila! I have a colored mouse. So now it's just time to adhere everything. And I'm still kind of playing around with how do I want this set up. And at first I thought, well, I could have the happy birthday up top and then the cake, but then it looked like the cake was floating in midair, and that doesn't help. So I decided to make the happy birthday kind of the grounding element for the cake to rest on, and I like that a little bit better. It just, you know, cake is great, but it just shouldn't float in midair. So I'm using my Tombo multipurpose glue to hold that down, and I put my acrylic block on top of it because, again, the card was warped, so I was trying to just kind of hold everything down flat so that it could set. And then I could grab my foam tape. Again, I've mentioned in past in past videos that this particular foam tape I got off Amazon. It's half the price of the Scotch 3M. I like it. There are many videos out there of people who just do not like it, but I like it. You cannot tear it, you have to cut it, but I cut my 3M, so that doesn't bother me. I have found that if you will go by afterwards and just press it down firmly onto the paper, the back really does release quite easily. I don't think I've sped this portion up much, just so you can kind of see that it's really not that hard. But ultimately, it's up to you. It's you do what you want. Me, I like saving the 50%. So all that's done. I'm just going to line it up to my card, making sure that I have everything lined up. At this time, you see my daughter's having to film for me because my camera had fallen over. It was a hot mess moment, but I don't have that in the video, so you know it's not an Adrian video unless there's a hot mess moment. And there you go. There's the finished card. So I thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this card, and I'll see you later. Bye. Be blessed.